What has the Quran got to do with science? Well, let's just say that the Quran essentially led to the scientific revolution. This series will show how the modern world, with all of its advancements and technology, owes its origin directly to the Quran. When we talk about the scientific revolution, immediately we have a picture of 17th century Europe, Francis Bacon, Galileo, Copernicus, etc. But to say that the scientific revolution, the fruits of which we enjoy today, emerged out of Europe all of a sudden in the 16th century is no less ridiculous a claim as saying Columbus discovered America. Just like there were people living there in the Americas at that time, there was a scientific revolution in place right across the Mediterranean. Human quest for knowledge is as old as the human being. So in that sense, science is as old as the human being. But the kind of science that we have now, this is science that has built our modern world. This is science that works, it produces results, it adds to economic growth, it improves the standard of living. This kind of science stems out of what is called the empirical experimental scientific method. What that actually means is for a scientific theory to be taken as fact, it has to be proved right experimentally. Now, where did this method come from? The common story that is forced down our throat is that it was the knowledge of the ancient Greeks that led to the Enlightenment in medieval Europe. Names like Pythagoras, Aristotle, Plato, Ptolemy are mentioned. But there are three gigantic problems with this story. Firstly, not only is the scientific method that produced modern science completely missing in ancient Greece, but the father of Western science, as he is called, Aristotle, and other philosophers like Thales and Epicurus are diametrically opposed to the scientific method. Rather, Aristotle is known to have said, it follows that there will be no scientific knowledge of the primary premises, and since except intuition, nothing can be truer than scientific knowledge, it will be intuition that apprehends the primary premises. Now, that is not how we do science. Inductive reasoning, the most central way we do science in the modern world, which is to construct a theory around a specific pattern that you observe, that is not even afforded the status of scientific inquiry in ancient Greece. Everything from Newtonian physics to Einstein's relativity, from cosmology to medical science, all are built on inductive reasoning. But for Greek science, it is left to intuition alone to provide a solid foundation. Add to that, Aristotle performed no modern-style experiments. Rather, it was considered very unusual and unwelcome for a philosopher in Greek society to be an artisan at the same time and to construct an apparatus to prove his theory correct. So the question is then, where did this method, the scientific method of rigorous experimentation come from, or who devised this? The first people to use rigorous experimentation to validate or falsify their theories were Iraqi physicist Ibn al-Haytham and philosopher Al-Kindi. This is beautifully written by French anthropologist Robert Briffault that science owes its very existence to Arabic culture. The ancient world was pre-scientific. What we call science arose in Europe as a result of a new spirit of inquiry, unknown to the Greeks. The spirit and those methods were introduced into the European world by the Arabs. The second problem with this classic narrative is that between ancient Greece and medieval Europe, there are at least 2,000 years in between. To say that knowledge will stay in its pure and pristine form for 2,000 years, and that too the most active 2,000 years of recorded history, and then suddenly and magically appear in another part of history and create a revolution, is just devoid of all logic and understanding of how history works. Thirdly, there were no original manuscripts of Aristotle, Ptolemy, or other big names of Greek philosophy. The books that led to the Enlightenment of Europe were Latin translations of Arabic commentaries on Greek philosophy. So what the medieval Europeans were basically reading were Muslim opinions on Greek philosophy. The best example is Copernicus, who is famous for proving that the Earth moves round the sun, even though there were other people who had already formulated this, but Columbus discovered America. That's the same syndrome here, which in the 16th century was going against the Christian belief that everything revolved around the stationary Earth, and that could very conveniently lead to death at the gallows. Copernicus could have never been able to formulate his model without the book on planetary motion by Ptolemy, or more precisely, the Latin translation of the Muslim astronomer Ibn Shatir's commentary and correction of Ptolemy. This point was proven by Austrian mathematician and historian of science Otto Neugebauer in 1957, that the lunar model that Copernicus used in his groundbreaking book De Revolutionibus, that started the scientific revolution, was exactly the same as Muslim astronomer Ibn Shatir and Nasruddin Tusi's planetary models, written some 200 years back. Add to this the discovery of German scientist and polymath Willi Hartner in 1975 that even the diagrams are same detail by detail, down to their alphabetical designations. Where Tusi uses Aleph, Copernicus uses A. Where Tusi uses Ba, Copernicus uses B, and so on. The truth is out, and now it's clear as daylight. The first ever global scale scientific revolution did not start in 16th century Europe. Rather, it was way before that, in the 9th century in the Muslim world, up until the 16th century, that a new method to understand reality was devised. This was the scientific method, one that would change the world forever. But that just leaves more questions than answers. How does a desert civilization of Bedouins, camel herders, or superstitious fire worshippers of the fallen Persian Empire suddenly usher in the world's biggest scientific revolution? What happened in just a matter of 100 years that took them from shepherding camels to correcting Ptolemy's calculations and Galen's theories? The answer is, it was the revelation of the Quran. There is something very powerful in the text of the Quran. To find out how the Quran compels the reader to find the proof of its claim, the claim that there is one super intelligence creating, controlling, maintaining everything in the universe. The proof of this particular claim in the very workings of the universe. To find out how the Quran does that, you'll have to watch the second episode.